The story starts with a person walking up the stairs of a cathedral where the Holy Pope is awaiting his arrival. The narrator explains that this scene is the coming-of-age of ceremony of a person. This could be also considered a person's first true birthday. It can cause happiness in some, while some may be left devastated. This is the day which dictates whether you can hold up your head high or rot in shame. The Pope begins to read out the skill bestowed upon this young man by the gods themselves. But the thing that the young man heard left him speechless instead. This is where the true story starts. In a mine, a miner hits his big axe on one of the rocks, which lets down a bunch of shiny crystalline rocks. One of the miners then tells the other one that it is the time to switch and that he should take some rest now. But the other miner asked that what was the need to take a break because it has been only 3 hours since they have started to work. But the first miner gave out a big grin saying that it's okay to take a break because the work is going to be even more hard after they have the lunch. The second miner granted that how the hell is he the breadwinner of a family with this kind of a personality? Laying out some sailor's biscuit and dried out bacon on a piece of paper. The first miner told the second one that he was just always way too upfront and disciplined. With both of them sitting on one of the boxes eating, the first guy asks the second one that, how was little Chrissy doing and how old is he turning now? Feeling proud, he reaches to his necklace which contains the photo of his kid. Opening up the case, it showed a photo of a little girl inside. The guy then happily told that she will be turning 5 years old next month. The second one exclaimed that how fast time flies. He then asks that whether he had decided on what he should give to her for her birthday. With a confused face, he told the second person that he was still deciding on what to get. And the second person enthusiastically told that they should earn a lot to get a good present, but someone's face and ears started to be visible walking in from the background. Midway conversation, the first guy instantly reacts to the creature that was walking towards them. The first guy shouts out to the second guy to look out behind him. Behind him was a kobold holding a rod. The first guy then shouts out to the second guy to get down while he readies his axe to hit the monster. In a shock, the second guy falls down on his back a little bit behind, while the first guy uses the axe to block the monster's attack. While he was shouting the second guy to get to safety, a second monster was perching upon a beam on the top of them, ready to attack. The next moment, this second monster jumped on the top of the first guy, throwing him off balance. The second guy could just watch in terror as both of the monsters tore the first guy into pieces. After killing the first guy, 2 of the monsters were springing out to the second guy. Then the next moment, a certain bolt of fire came through, burning off one of the monsters. From the side, a voice was heard shouting that was reporting about 8 confirmed monsters. A person in the cape was seen as the one who looked at the monsters and said that it was a bit too much for them to handle. The person in cave then shouted out to 3 of his subordinates standing behind him to prepare for battle and to not let even a single one escape. All of them shouted, "Yes, sir," in unison. The support team lighted up the area to see the monsters better. The attack team created a lot of fireballs to attack the monsters. The medical team was quickly mobilized to check on the victims. The second miner was frantically pointing him to heal the first one. Even after all of the battle formation, one of the monsters got away and went on to attack one of the subordinates. Seeing that the monster was headed towards him, the subordinate started to scream in fear. Once subordinate looked behind, shouting out his name, while another one started to run towards him in order to protect him. He filled his hand with a raging inferno fire, creating a fireball. He kept on creating the fireball while chanting out the spell of the attack. With a fully completed firewall attack, the subordinate then jumped on the top of the monster, planning to attack him from behind. With a single strong attack, he obliterated the monster away. The black-hair subordinate came running towards the blonde-hair one, asking him if he was all right. With a sad expression, he asked for forgiveness because he always messes up. But Alfred said that it was all right and to not worry about it. He was just glad that he was safe. With a curious expression, the blonde guy asked that how he was so much stronger and braver than him, even though he was not that much older compared to him. Alfred said that it was nothing to boast about because the only thing strong about him was his magic. Clenching his fists, he said that his motivation for strength was to get stronger, so that everybody around him could acknowledge him. The brunette hair guy then reached to both of them, panting from the long run, shouting out if he was okay. Helping him, he asked if Malcolm was okay or not. He just agreed by nodding. Alred could just quietly look at this display of affection in front of him, thinking to himself how this world only revolves around someone's skills. The narrator explains that the skills are special abilities which were bestowed by the gods upon young people who come of age. And in this world where skills reign supreme, they provide the greatest advantage. With ominous expression, he thinks to himself that he is going to change the world by getting a great skill. But suddenly he was distracted by the leader shouting everyone to gather up in one spot. Gathering in one spot, the leader briefs everyone that there is a man calling himself the Grime, arguing with a woman in town. So he asks one of the students to go out and check what the hell is happening. He says that it was going to be okay because the rest of the subordinates units will handle everything. Pointing towards a guy named Leonard, the leader asked him to go to the city, taking 2 or 3 people with him. The guy readily agrees. Hearing this, the other officer then turns towards Alfred saying that monster extermination is over, they should move out now. Turning over to Malcolm, Alfred asks him that would he be able to come with them as well. With a shaky voice, Malcolm agreed. Here outside in the city, a big, burly, bald man holding a giant sword shouts out that how can someone refuse the Great Grimm's invitation? A girl trying to protect her shouts out that what was wrong with him trying to force her like this. Grabbing her hand, the Grimm starts to drag her, that it was going to be okay because he was just taking her to hang with him for a bit, but she kept on shouting to let her go. But then someone shouts out from behind saying that this is as far he was going to go. The Grimm turned around to see who was saying this. The person introduced himself as Alfred from the court, Mage Guild, shouting out to the Grimm to quietly release the lady. With pride in his voice, the Grimm swings out his great sword, mocking out Alfred that what was he trying to do as a small boy, boasting that his one swing will stop him from ever playing hero again. Slamming his sword onto the ground, the Grimm says that this little boy must be having a lot of nerve to do something like this. As the retaliation and defense, Alfred instantly pulls out his fireball magic circle. Both the senior and Malcolm came running behind. The senior kept on cursing him, that why did he move on forward without them? But as the chief was reaching to the fighting ground, the Grimm let down a huge swipe which threw Alfred far away. Here Malcolm went on to tend to the injured girl, introducing himself as Malcolm Cortez from the Court Mage Guild, asking her if she was injured. Malcolm then turned around to see how Alfred was doing in the fight. Just as Alfred was about to chant a new attack, the Grimm broke his chant with another sword swiper. The next moment, the leader came on to support Alfred. Alfred clicked his tongue that he was not even allowing him to chant any attack. The leader instructed Alfred that at the end of the day, these magics are just an imitation of skills, and they are nothing compared to the miracles bestowed upon them by the gods. Pointing himself towards the Grimm, he told Alfred to look at him, watch him closely, to see the true power bestowed upon them by the gods. He told Alfred that he was going to stop the Grimm's sword using his gift, and then he should know what to do next by himself. Alfred readily agreed. Giving the leader a lot of space, Alfred started to run back from the battlefield. Looking at the attack patterns on the ground, the leader asked the Grimm if he was using a skill to do these attacks. The Grimm gave out a big laugh saying that he might be using them, but why did it matter to anybody? The leader, giving a smile, told Grimm that the child he was fighting did not even have any skill as of now. So how about both of them have an actual adult fight from there? The Grimm mocked the leader that how come the Great Code Mage Guild was babysitting a kid who did not even have a skill yet? And he also needs to be taught some manner trying to pick up a fight like this, saying that he swung his big sword towards the leader. But the leader just closed his eyes, beginning to collect his internal powers. A moment later, he opened them, causing sparks to fly everywhere. A lot of radiant sparks started to turn into small fireballs behind him, creating the radiant arrow. Seeing the skill of such high caliber, Grimm instantly got super cautious. The master called one of his attacks as Flicker. Many diamond-shaped lights started to come out of portals. Those diamond-shaped lights started to attack Grimm. He tried to save himself by using his broadsword as a shield. But the broadsword was absolute useless because it started to cut him up everywhere on his leg. On his shoulder, veins started to pop on the Grimm's forehead with rage and pain. Amidst the bloodbath, the master started to explain that his power was shooting arrows made out of light at literally light speed. There was no way one can avoid it. Looking at such a show of strength, Alfred understood that this is why magic cannot compete with God-given skills. But then he caught himself daydreaming, shouting at himself to not get distracted. Since his master's skill has made the enemy stop in the tracks, he started to charge up his fireball by reciting the spell. Alfred collected all of his power possible to create the strongest possible fireball spell, aiming it towards the Grimm. He blessed the ball to pierce and burn everything in its path. The fireball went and hit directly on Grimm's back. A little bit while later, Grimm was caught and handcuffed and was taken to the jail. The guildmaster came and congratulated Alfred that this was not a bad attack and he did really well. Running towards the guildmaster, Alfred asked that what did he do about the mine monster? He said that he finished all of them off, and he should be grateful for him. With a cheeky smile, Alfred said a big thank you. But with a sad expression, he started to say that how even with all of his strongest spell, he was completely useless against the criminal, and he was only able to stop before Leonard Professor helped him. The professor said that Alfred shouldn't worry about small stuff like this because there is an enormous difference between magic, which anyone can learn with training, compared to skills which were bestowed by the heavens. Besides, he did not need to lose hope yet. Alfred got excited thinking what the guildmaster might be thinking about. The guildmaster reminded Alfred that he did not need to fret much because he was going to have his coming of each ceremony next month, where he will be also given a skill by the heavens. Alfred got super excited upon being reminded that, and the guildmaster hoped that he got a good skill. Clenching his fists, Alfred thought to himself that once he gets his skill, he is going to change everything. And he promises to himself that he is going to get a super strong skill like Professor Leonardo. The next stage starts with Alfred's room, sunlight coming in at the start of a new day. With a little bit of struggle, Alfred wakes up from his sleep. Standing up, he stretches a little bit, giving out a big yawn. After freshening himself up, he goes to the kitchen to create a cup of golden tea for himself. With a lot of cautiousness, Alfred holds the teacup and brings it back to his bunker bed to drink it. But Malcolm was just staring at Alfred without saying any word. Realizing Malcolm was awake, Alfred asks, "What was he doing, and was he awake the whole time?" Malcolm replied yes. Holding out the cup towards Malcolm, Alfred offers some of the golden tea as there was some left in the kettle back at the kitchen. Malcolm freshening himself up. He accepted Alfred's generosity with a smile, saying that he will also take some of the golden tea. After a while, a kid then runs out, greeting one of his friends whom he had made an appointment beforehand to meet up at the place. Seeing that he was late, the friend asked if he was okay and if he had a good sleep the last night. He replied that his sleep was okay and there was nothing for concern. Giving a slight giggle, the friend said that it was okay to not have a good sleep because he himself did not had any as well, because he was so nervous that he barely got any sleep. The other girl standing with them also said that she did not get any sleep either. Malcolm and Alfred, who were standing in a little bit in front of the kids, were talking, in which Malcolm was basically brooding that since he was not as talented as Alfred, he is pretty much going to get useless skill. But Alfred, giving a pat on Malcolm's back, assured him that it's going to be all right, and they for sure are going to get skills that is going to make them the top mages in the court of Mage Guild. But Malcolm was still not convinced and was a little bit worried. But then he gave out a subtle laugh, saying that maybe Alfred must be right. The other kids surrounding them started to make fun of Alfred, saying that he is acting as if he has already gotten a really powerful skill. One of the kids among the crew called out to the Professor Leonardo, and the other kids shouted out to him to not be so rude. The other kid said that Professor Leonardo was especially sensitive today because his little brother was going to get a skill bestowed upon him. Everybody gathered at the gate of a beautiful white marble chapel dedicated to the god where everybody was going to get the skills. Inside the chapel, the Pope said that they were going to start the coming-of-age ceremony. The Pope instructed all of the kids standing in front of him that he is going to call out each name one by one, and the person whose name was called, they are going to walk to the top of the podium in front of the Pope. As the names were being called one by one, Malcolm's stress levels was continuing on rise. But Alfred, on the other hand, was completely calm. Heck, he even gave a big smile from time to time, eagerly awaiting his turn. The Pope then calls out Malcolm's name, Malcolm Curtis. Upon hearing his name, Malcolm instantly froze in fear. With heavy steps filled with fear, Malcolm walks up the stairs to the podium, whereas Alfred looks at him with a happy expression. As the Pope was reciting the vows and naming the skill that was bestowed upon him by the god, Malcolm kept his eyes shut in fear. Learning the name of the scale, the Pope took a small break which surprised Malcolm a little bit. Creating a bit of suspense, the Pope revealed that the skill bestowed upon Malcolm Curtis by the god was that of lightning bolt. The Pope began to explain that this skill created a powerful giant lightning spear that can be launched. Hearing this, Malcolm started to tear up in happiness. The entire populace started to cheer and clap for Malcolm, some of them exclaiming that lightning bolt was one of the best skills of the day. Some were jealous, some were happy. There was a lot of emotion flowing around. All of the court mages ran up to him, hugging him and celebrating at the good news. Even Alfred gave out a big thumbs up to Malcolm, congratulating him. The noise levels got so high that the Pope shouted everyone to stay quiet. Malcolm reciprocated with a big smile, with tears still flowing out of his eyes. And at the very end, the Pope called out the name of Alfred Nostel. Everybody was busy looking at Alfred because he was their rising star, and everybody was curious as to what skill he was going to get. And finally we reached to the start of the story where the Pope was about to announce the skill bestowed upon Alfred by the gods. The name of the scale was Control Key, the Control Key. Alfred could not understand what kind of skill this was, and his face turned pale. Everyone among the masses started talking with each other, wondering what kind of skill this was because they had never heard it before. Malcolm's face continued to turn paler, moment by moment. Finally, without waiting, Guildmaster himself came to check on what was happening. The Guildmaster asked the Pope that what was the ranking of this Control Key skill. Giving a big sigh, the Pope said that he did not know the ranking because it was unknown, and he speculated that it is probably so weak that it was hard to rank between A to E. Alfred could not understand what was happening to him right now. Everybody in the guild was concerned, while the Guildmaster gave out a big sigh while covering his face. Turning to everyone, the Guildmaster shouted that it was such a shame that incompetent was born from their esteemed mage coat. Another one of the professors shouted that he told that this was going to happen because he already said not to admit a kid who has not even gone through the ceremony. Another one of the professors shouted that Alfred was now just a waste because no matter how good someone is at magic, they can never match the usefulness of their skills. Now, within moments, the Guildmaster turned every single guild member against Alfred. The Guildmaster made a decision that keeping incompetent around is going to be problematic for them. Alfred came stumbling down from the stairs, shouting, "How could they treat him like this after all this time?" Malcolm was running to catch Alfred when his older brother Leonardo stopped him because he did not want his little brother to be struck in this mess. With a stern expression, the Guildmaster then addressed Alfred that, as of this moment, he was stripped out of all of his possessions and positions. The Guildmaster banished Alfred to the boondocks from where he had to start from the scratch all over again. Hearing such a harsh decision, Alfred could do nothing other than weep on his knees. The next morning came on as usual, but unlike before this time, Alfred's bed was empty. On his shelf, except his magical book, everything was taken away. Alfred took off his coat-gown uniform and dumped it into the laundry wash bucket below. Alfred turned around to look one last time at the uniform that was with him all this time. His teacups were sitting silently on the table. The next scene then cuts back to 6 years before as a flashback, where we see a countryside kingdom, and one separate big mansion was situated on the other side of the kingdom. This was the Nostal house. It was a noble family which lived on the frontier. On its edge, 2 kids were riding 2 horses, and inside a young Alfred was sitting, lost in thought about something. Looking out of the window, Alfred told his father that he also wanted to ride a horse as well. But reading the newspaper, Alfred said that there was no need for it, and if he had finished his meal, he should return to his room. But Alfred could not understand why there was such a discrimination between his brothers and him. So he asked why was he not allowed to do so. But without explaining anything, the father told him to return to his room. Otherwise, the consequences will not be pretty. Alfred could do nothing but stare quietly. He bowed down and said sorry to his father. After the interaction, he walked out of his office, still wary of him. After he was a significant amount of distance away from his father's office, he started to walk towards his room with his head held low. But then suddenly his brother called out to him to go down the balcony. Alfred looked at him and asked what was it. With a creepy expression, he told that he was going to let Alfred ride the horses as well. Listening to it, he happily starting to run towards his older brother. Inside of a tavern, the middle brother brought Alfred to the big brother saying that he has brought him. He took him to the stable to show one of the black horses that they had preferred just for him. Alfred looked at the horse and said how cool it looked. Keeping the same creepy expression, the brothers ordered him to go and touch the horse from the back since approaching it from the front will make him angry. And while Alfred was going to touch it, all of the brothers started laughing at how idiot he was. Alfred slowly crept behind the horse's back and gave a slight touch to its tail. But contrary to what Alfred was told, the horse started to scream in the stable, kicking him in the back. All of the 3 brothers started to give out a hearty laugh, but in the next moment the lady shouted that, "What are those guys doing?" The middle brother clicked his tongue that she was here and prompted all of the other brothers to run away. One of the brothers clicked his tongue, cursing that, why did their father marry a commoner? The lady came running to Alfred shouting, was he all right or not, while Alfred was on the ground crying from pain. This lady was her mom. She went on to explain to him that he was a half-born and had the blood of commoner running through him, due to which the other brothers could not accept him and thus harassed him. Young Alfred asked that if all of this was caused due to pride, then if he had pride, then everything will be stopped. Alfred's mom did not know how to answer to that question. But she said that she was going to teach him a charm, which allowed him to become strong. Alfred's mom started to chant the spell of fireball, creating a magic circle. And finally, she was able to create a powerful fireball. Seeing his mom perform this spell absolutely amazed Alfred. She told that when she was little, she had learned a little bit of magic. And using a book from the shelf, Alfred himself can learn magic as well, but he needs to keep it a secret from everyone else. Alfred said that he understood. He started to chant the spell for the fireball, which caused mana to flow around him, which made him feel warm. After a little bit of practice, he was also able to create a fireball in his hand. By now, Alfred was a lot more grown up and had a lot more control over his fireball. One of the maids bashed in his room, shouted out that something was wrong. The maid kept on panting that something wrong was about to happen to Madame. Sensing the danger, Alfred instantly ran to his mother, dropping his magic books. Holding Alfred's hand, her mother commented that he still has lingering residual magical power inside him. So she instantly knew that Alfred was practicing magic on his own. With a bit of happiness, Alfred told his mother that he was able to use the 6 spells now, but she, with her eyes closing, congratulated him on working so hard, saying that she was happy that her magic was something that he was proud of. After saying that much, she closed her eyes while Alfred could only shout her name into the void. The maid who told Alfred about her mother also could not control her tears and broke down. The world was so indifferent, even though someone so special lost her life. But the next day in the same room, there was a letter that was on the floor. Wanting to clean the room, the maid came in to check up who was there. She found one lonely letter in the right middle of the room. Opening the letter, she found out that it was written by her master Alfred, who said that she was the only one who treated both of them fair, even though they were commoners, and he wanted to thank her for everything. Seeing that Master Alfred was gone, she looked out of the window, wishing him happiness and good life. At the Colosseum in the next town, one of the guards shouted to one of the kids that they were not allowed in. The guard said that in order to take the participation examination, a person needed to at least have a skill at the coming-of-age ceremony. Alfred said that it did not matter because it was only a year away, but the guard said that he should wait for a year until then. Hearing all of this commotion, the guildmaster walks in from the corridor asking what was this all about. The guard told to the guildmaster that this little kid wanted to give the entry examination of the Mage Guild. Kneeling down, the guildmaster asks Alfred, that was he familiar with the concept of magic? Enthusiastic and wanting to prove himself, Alfred says that he is going to show it. He charges his fist up with the spell for the dragon knuckle and punches it straight towards the guildmaster. But the guildmaster chants some spell instantly, which created enormous icy barrier in between the two, stopping his dragon knuckle. Seeing his caliber, the guildmaster asks for forgiveness to Alfred for treating him like a child. And for the compensation, he is going to allow Alfred to participate in the examination, which is going to be a mock battle. Alfred aces all of the mock battles by creating spells like the water blade, and his usual, the fireball. His magical prowess helped him to win the mock battle, and the guildmaster held out his hand for everyone to see who the winner was. Far away, Malcolm and Leonard are watching the fight, and Malcolm asks that, who is that kid? With a small smile, Leonardo says that this kid is a boy of his own age. Hearing his capabilities and achievements, Malcolm asks if he will also be someday able to perform magic like this. Raising him up high in the air, Leonardo motivates Malcolm that he will surely be able to do it one day. Back in the present time, the next day since Alfred was banished, Malcolm runs to Alfred's room, shouting out to find out where he is. But in the end, Malcolm found nothing but empty space in the room. He turned around to find the rest of the belongings of Alfred, just in case he might find them. But he found nothing other than the abandoned uniform that Alfred left in the laundry basket. Alfred was gone. In the next scene from a balcony, a mother watches his kid walking along with his friend. Seeing them go somewhere, she instructs her son to be back by the dinner time. The child also agreed readily, saying that he will be back by dinner time as well. And the friend of the child started to mock the kid that at this rate he might also go and give his mama a kiss, but the child was flustered. But other than that, Alfred was walking beside them. Alfred was thinking about what he should do from now because going back to his house was out of the question. But living in the dorm was also not an option in this case, saying that he started to rummage through his bag. Looking the amount of money he had in his bag, if he tried to stretch his living in a cheap inn, then he should be able to last about 6 months. Alfred started to groan at the idea of having to find a job within 6 months. But he was assured that he will be fine because he has managed up till now. He will surely be able to figure something out. But without having a skill, he will be turned away from the door instantly. Because in this world, even jobs like a blacksmith, apothecary, a tailor, a food chef, it did not matter what the job was, they needed to be skilled, bestowed upon by the gods in order to consider that as a profession. Alfred started to run his hand through his hair, wondering that what the heck is the control key anyways. But as Alfred was walking down, someone came running targeting his bag. In a swift motion, they stole the bag from his hand. Throwing Alfred down, the person took his bag and started to run away. The person ran so fast that Alfred did not even know at this point that his bag was stolen yet. But the next moment, he realized that his bag was not there. Realizing that he had been had, he started to groan in anger, asking the fate to just give him a break. Because this was not the good time for fate to make him encounter a thief. With tears in his eyes, Alfred said goodbye to his 6-month savings. From the next moment, he realized that his depression was causing him to give up really fast. So, collecting himself together, he started to chant out the spell for his fireball, and imbued his leg with the speed of the wind. After having imbued himself with both of the spells, he got into a running position. With the final spell body acceleration, he launched himself off the ground. With insanely high speed, he started to fly through the road of concrete, closing distance with the thief moment by moment. With his super fast acceleration, he dodged through every single person in the road without hitting anyone. But the thief was really fast as well. Going like this did not matter at all because him and the thief were just caught in a perpetual cycle of chase. While continuously running, Alfred realized that the thief was charging up his legs with the power of some skill. Even with his topmost speed, he was unable to catch up to the thief. Slowly and slowly, the distance between him and the thief began to increase once more. And just as slowly and slowly, Alfred began to lose his breath, realizing that this was all he could do without any skills. The thief began to gloat to himself, saying that how easy it was to let him off the hook. The thief's skill was some sort of golden light talons that granted him excess amount of boost. But in the reflection, the person was seen perched up on the wall looking below. The man spoke to himself, saying that once his legs got caught by his eyes, then it's going to be all over for him. Saying that, the man gave out a large puff of smoke from a cigarette. Catching his breath, Alfred started to groan at how he completely lost the sight of the thief. But the thief was standing right in front of him, mixed into the normal civilians walking away quietly. But then the ceiling guy jumped down onto the floor while still smoking his cigarette. He landed directly in front of the thief. Putting on his hoodie, he starts to click his tongue, saying that just how many times he need to run because he can never escape his eyes. Because this is what had happened since the very beginning, boasted the man. The thief started to curse at how persistent these adventurers can be. Pulling out his sword, he shouted and warned the adventurer to get out of his business. Activating his eye power, he commented at how ironic it was for a thief to say something like this. The thief swipes his blade at the adventurer, which he effortlessly dodges. Once more, another time. Alfred was just amazed at how amazing this adventure was, at how fast his dynamic vision was. Then he realized that it was not only his dynamic vision which was at work now. While Alfred said that, the thief took a jab at the adventurer's leg, which he once again dodged by jumping up. It was as if he was able to see the enemy's next move. The adventurer's skill was something like the new near future. He ended the fight by turning back his body and kicking the thief right in the face. At this point, Alfred had no doubt. Those eyes of his were able to see the future. A while later, the adventurer tied up the thief, securing the bag from him. And then at last, Alfred walked up to him. The adventurer commented at how late he was. Flopping over the bag to him, he said that it was already over anyways. Alfred gave out a big thank you. Holding out a pendant, the adventurer told that it was nothing big of a deal because his job was to get back the client's valuables to safety. He was reminded of the peacekeeping duties that he had to do in the capital, which were exactly like this. And he thought that he might have a shot at this job. Saying goodbye, the adventurer started to walk away, but Alfred did not let the chance in front of him go to waste. He called out to the adventurer. He turned around to see what did this little kid wanted from him. Alfred said to the adventurer that could he teach him about the work because he was also trying to become an adventurer. The adventurer gave out a big chuckle, saying that he was a weird kind of kid trying to pursue a path like this, but he did not hesitate to show him the ropes. The adventurer then introduced himself with his name as Jackson Caird. Then suddenly, the adventurer started to shout, hearing the goal of the kid, which was to become an adventurer. Hearing this expression, he got worried and asked him whether it was really difficult to get into the examination. But the adventurer answered that that was not the case at all, because anybody could become a mage as long as they had come of age. And there was no real discrimination based on skill quality, which allow anyone to rise to the top with their own strength. Alfred listening that there was no discrimination based upon the scales. He got a really big smile on his mouth. He emphasized that the jobs ranged from everything to everything, from helping old ladies with shopping, which even a kid could do, to a super dangerous monster subjugation. He did it all. But the best part was all of this was because of his own choice. He had the freedom to walk away at any given moment in time and choose skills as easy to have. Alfred, after listening to so many phrases, he started to wonder what exactly are the downsides then. But in order to not demotivate a new potential adventurer, he refused on saying the downsides and that he will find them eventually. By himself, Alfred started to shout that why was he trying to keep the downsides? He should just tell them to him now. But the adventurer told him to not worry because this is all common when they are just starting out. After walking for a little while, the adventurer and Alfred reached to their destinations. Alfred, which place this was? Pointing at the building, the adventurer told that this building is the place which manages and maintains all of the other adventurers. This is the guild. Both of them walked inside to register him at the guild. With a big smile, the adventurer said that this is the place where he must part with Alfred because he had to go to another counter to submit the completion of his request. Alfred gave a heartfelt handshake to the adventurer, thanking him for everything up till now. But he told him to not bother because meeting Alfred might be in the fate for both of them. While walking away, he gave one last piece of advice is to always be wary of others because there are a lot of rough people among the adventurers, and to be careful of the newbie hunters. Alfred returned the wave back to him with a big smile. After saying goodbye to the adventurer, Alfred went to the receptionist desk to register as a newbie. Using the magical crystal, he tested his aptitude and strength as a mage. And finally, to complete all the legalities, he signed his name onto a piece of paper. The receptionist congratulated him for his hard work and welcomed him to the world of adventurers. Signing the papers, Alfred thought that it was much more easier than he anticipated. Literally anyone can become adventurer. Pulling out a silver-looking badge, the receptionist said that this was his adventure badge, which showed his rank. And this badge was of the E rank. The receptionist further added that his jobs and his quality of work will help him promote, giving him a new badge each time. Putting the badge on his coat, Alfred thanked the receptionist for all her help, whereas Grim the adventurer came in walking from outside. Grim instantly noticed and recognized Alfred and called him out. Grim confronted him asking that, wasn't he Alfred from the court-guiled mage? Why does an elite like him came to a place like this? Seeing Grim there, Alfred shouted out, what was he doing here? But Grim was offended because Alfred did not use any honorifics to call him. Saying that, Grim noticed the shining badge on the chest of Alfred. Grim could not contain his amusement and started to laugh out loud. He began to mock Alfred by saying that was he fired from the Court Mage Guild? And now, since he did not have the protection of his seniors, he can easily return the favor from back then. Grim picked up his sword from his shoulder, readying himself for a fighting stance for revenge. Taking a heavy swing, he hit his sword on the wooden ground of the Adventurous Guild office. It has not been even 10 minutes since Alfred was stuck in another fight that was completely pitted against him. Maintaining his fighting stance, Grim picked up his sword to point at Alfred. Pulling out his own badge from his pocket, he asked Alfred that did he know what it was. It was the same adventurous badge as Alfred, but instead, it had a logo of a lion. Completely unfamiliar with the ranking system, Alfred began to wonder what that symbol meant. But the receptionist from behind said that this symbol was known as the Silver Lion, and a pendant with this insignia indicated that the adventurer was of B rank. Raising up his sword for another attack, he said that he lost earlier only because of that cowardly pincer attack. Raising his power, he went and took a huge swing directly aimed towards Alfred. Alfred plunged himself down, barely dodging the attack. He instantly started to scan his surroundings for a counterattack. Getting into position, Grim started to taunt Alfred once more that he can never escape him no matter what he does. Alfred was angry because it does not matter how much it angers him. Grim was right in this case. He cannot fight him in this manner. Back then, he was only able to win because Leonardo was there to support him. But that does not mean that he will just give up and lose right there and there. Alfred also started to mock Grim by saying that he should allow him to let go. In rage, Grime started to charge up his sword attack once more. While Grime and Alfred were fighting each other, some other people in the guild house were looking and laughing at him, saying that he had gone on a rampage once again. The previous adventurer was there trying to light his cigarette. The adventurer was angry that why the hell was Grime doing this early in the morning? But seeing that the person that Grime was fighting was Alfred, instantly sprang up to protect him. Another person from behind brought 2 barrels of wine and asked him that why did he react like that? Did he, Hawkeye, knew Alfred? Hawkeye could not answer anything. The person below then asked Hawkeye, "Then was this kid really strong because he came from the Mage Guild?" Hawkeye answered that no way in hell Alfred was strong because he only registered as an adventurer a few minutes ago, and Alfred was nothing but a complete rookie. Over this side, Grime kept on swinging around his broadsword, shouting that why was he not using his fireballs like before? Just like before, Alfred was barely able to save himself time to time again. He realized to himself that if he needed to do anything to Grime first, he needed to get rid of the great sword or impair it in any way. So he began to charge up his water magic, but before he could even complete his chant, Grim broke up his spell. Alfred realized that Grim was strategically targeting him to prevent him from creating any magic spells. Hawkeye said that every single person around here knows about Grime's name and his actions. After all, he's a famous troublemaker in the royal capital. And even he was unable to stop Grime using his power. Hawkeye could do nothing but just watch. He apologized for not being able to help him. Another one standing in the hall started to comment that why was he not going on offense because for the past entire fight, the only thing he has been doing is dodging the attacks. And every single grown adult men in the Adventurous Guild started to root against a little kid and shouted to Grim to finish him off quickly. But Hawkeye did not lose hope in Alfred. He knew that Alfred was not a coward at all, because if he was, he would have surrendered the moment he was challenged. But the thing that confused Hawkeye was that if Alfred was able to register as an adventurer, then he must have a skill. He was confused that why Alfred was not using his skill. He started to speculate the reasons he might be unable to use the skill. Hawkeye began to use his skilled eyes in order to look for the skills in Alfred. The Specs guy from earlier came to Hawkeye to ask that did he also felt like the kid was hiding something? And since he realized that Hawkeye was using his skilled eyes to look at the fight, he asked that what may happen at this rate. Hawkeye refused by saying that his skill is not so convenient thing that he can use it willy-nilly. He used it and he was out of magic power, and thus everything was going to unfold in front of him as it is. Over here on the fighting side, Alfred, after dodging so much, unable to keep his balance, fell down on his knees. Seizing that opportunity, Grime took another big swing at him, shouting to himself that he is absolutely going to kill him. Grime shot his attack at the ground, which propagated through the floor towards Alfred. Alfred tried his absolute best to react to the attack coming towards him, but he was unable to do anything, and attack sliced right through him, and thus he was thrown far on his back due to the enormous broadsword swing. Seeing him on the ground like this, Hawkeye shouted out to Alfred to check if he was okay. But unfortunately, Alfred suffered a massive cut on his stomach, leading to a lot of bleeding. Seeing a lot of blood on his hands, his vision started to blur. The next moment, an enormous amount of electricity started to surge within his mind, jolting him up. A system window popped up in front of his eyes, which said that the skill holder was in danger and auto-load of tutorial was being initiated. Hawkeye to Alfred's rescue, asking him if he was okay, but Alfred could not understand what that voice in his head was. He shouted out to the voice about cheat, load, tutorial. What were these words and what did he meant? But just as he was saying that, a blinding white light enveloped Alfred, taking him somewhere completely white. He saw various alphabets floating on the top of blue systems in front of his eyes. The system showed a skill named Sword Collision while pointing towards Grime. After showing that the system read out his name to be Grime Barker, which possessed a swordsmanship skill of level C. Alfred further read the uses of this skill, which showed that it applies correction effect during combat while using swords. Grime was absolutely shocked at how Alfred was able to deduce out his skill. Alfred himself was shocked at how he was able to deduce out Grime's skill as well by reading out some text in front of him. The voice showed a keyboard in front of him and told that the command copy and paste can be done by pressing the C and Ctrl key, and the skill can be pasted onto him by using the same command and paste key. At this point, Alfred just gave up and was like, I don't care, whatever, and he pressed the Ctrl C and Ctrl V, copy and pasting the skill. The moment he copied and pasted the skill, a light started to illuminate from the keyboard, and a jolt of electricity surrounded his mind, and the system gave out a message to Alfred saying that the integration of new skill onto him was complete. His name now showed that he had a sword collision skill level C in his slot. Seeing his name along with slot, Alfred understood that this is how the skill copy and paste worked. Worried Hawkeye asked to Alfred if he was okay. Alfred said to not worry about anything. The next moment, Alfred's eye landed onto the sword that was on the Hawkeye's hip. Grabbing his sword, he asked Hawkeye if he could borrow it. But in reality, he just stole it for a little while. Hawkeye started to run after Alfred, shouting that what the hell was he doing? Grabbing this word, he started to run head front towards Grime. Reciprocating, Grime also redid his sword, got into the stance, readying himself for the attack, but this time Alfred was ready. He moved like a lightning strike through Grime's footwork, and within an instant he sliced his sword through Grime's back. The confusion and panic on Grime's face was properly apparent. Absolutely confused as to what just happened right now. But Alfred had sliced through like a butter. Alfred put so much force that the floor of the guild of his broke down under the pressure. Getting into position, Alfred and Grime locked in for another strike at each other. But this time, Alfred's eyes were glowing as if he was using a skill. But Grime over here was losing his mind as to how Alfred was using his skill. And once more, Alfred striked Grime in the same place, deeply injuring him. Grime lost his footing and started to cough out blood. Alfred could not understand what just happened because the moment he stepped in, it felt as if his body moved on its own. Alfred was shocked at how much power skills had. Grime began to collect his thought, realizing the skill that Alfred just used in front of him was his own skill, swordsmanship, and he had no doubt about it. He began to speculate that this might be the reason he was kicked out of the Mage Guild, because he was given a swordsmanship skill. But even then, Grime felt that something was not right here, because Alfred was unable to hold his sword even just a moment ago. And suddenly he was able to move like this. Grime realized that thoughts and hesitation will only hamper him here. So he readied his sword for the next attack. Holding his stance, he charged straight onto Alfred. Alfred had held his sword in front of him and used it as a shield to block Grime's attack. Even then, the sword was proving to be too heavy for him to block, locking in a stalemate stance. Grimes says that it is not just skills. This is the weight of the entire sword techniques that he had built up and honed for every day. It was his pride. And as a swordsman, it was really disrespectful for him to fight someone who picked up the sword for the first time today. Alfred was facing a lot of difficulty, but somehow he was able to keep his stance, saying that Green A changed his tactic and used his legs to attack Alfred from his base, completely throwing his balance off. Alfred was completely pushed behind a few meters where he was left that lying down. Groaning and crawling, he started to crawl towards the fallen sword, cursing himself that even with his sword skill, he was unable to win. But then the thought of something that Malcolm asked him a few days ago came, where he asked that how was he so strong? How can he fight so bravely? And then he was also reminded of his guildmaster when he brutally outcasted him, saying that he was just a greenhorn and he should start from the very scratch. And then finally, his mother, his pillar, his hope, who had taught him everything, brought him to where he is now. But then among their fight, one of the fire lanterns fell down onto the floor and its oil spilled out to the entire floor. Just one spark later, the entire floor was now engulfed in fire. Giving up was not a choice that Alfred could afford to take. He realized that he needed to end it right here. He cannot afford to lose. He cannot lose. He stands right back up on his feet among the flames. Alfred then runs towards one of the barrels that was kept at the side of the office, and he kicked it with all his force towards Grim. Readying his sword to attack the barrel, Grim exclaimed that such a struggle is nothing but futile. With one single strike, he chopped the barrel apart, spilling out all the liquid within onto the floor. Taking another one of those fire lamps, Alfred threw it at Grim. The lamp spitted out sparks which caught onto the spilled liquid around the Grim, and suddenly Grim was now engulfed by fire. Instantly closed his mouth and nose in order to stop inhaling any of those flame fumes. He understood Alfred's strategy, which was to drain his stamina with smoke and seal his movement within a wall of flames. But raging and screaming, he picked up his sword once more, shouting that what little small fire like this could do to him. But Alfred was also not sitting silently either. He was also ready in his stance, holding his sword in position. Jumping out of the fire, he sliced through the smoke using his sword alone. Thus, he was now within the fire ring along with Grim. Grim picked up his sword to attack head front to slice down, whereas Alfred picked his sword from bottom to slice up from bottom up. The outcome of the battle was going to be settled with this one slice alone. And here in that stalemate, Alfred was victorious. He was able to slice the sword out of Grim's hand. Grim shouted at something like, "This was impossible. How the hell did Alfred do this?" Creating a fireball in his hand. Alfred shouted that this was the result of his pride that his mom gave him. And he started to complete the chant. With a completed fireball chant, he attacked it right onto Grim's solar plexus. The impact of the punch tore apart his clothes from behind. With his spiral ball impact, he was thrown many feet away, launching Grim away. He finally started to catch up his breath. Hawkeye was absolutely shocked seeing the scene unfold in front of him, to the point that even the cigarette fell out from his mouth. Seeing the tide of the battle, every single one in the guild of his started to praise and cheer for Alfred. Alfred began to profusely apologize to the receptionist for all of the mess that they had caused, but she told that it was nothing of concern because they will take care of the unconscious grime and clean up the mess. While Alfred was walking out of the door, Hawkeye called out to him to say something. Alfred turned around to ask that what did he needed from him. By this point, it was already dawn. The sun was about to set and the sky was red. Hawkeye told Alfred that his motivation for fight, pride versus pride, was what showed such an amazing fight between them. Hawkeye was really satisfied. Hawkeye never saw Alfred in any good light before. He thought that Alfred was some kind of rich brat who got his wallet stored, and he apologized for thinking like this. Alfred, with a happy face, told Hawkeye not worry, because people just judge others anyway, holding out the sword he was carrying. He thanked Hawkeye for lending it to him and apologized for holding it for so long. Hawkeye refused to take back the sword. He said that this sword did not belong to him now. This sword now belongs to Alfred. He was the sole master of this sword. Hawkeye said that this sword name was the Sword of Departure. He got it from his father when he had started adventure. He dreamed of the day that he could find someone to entrust it, and now that he had done it, he felt like he was a proper adult now. Alfred, with a somber look, looked at the sword, saying that if this is the case, then he was happy to accept it. A little while later, both of them departed in their own ways, giving a last wave. But just before Hawkeye was about to leave, he shouted out to Alfred, saying that he could clearly see the vision. The vision of Alfred becoming the greatest mage in the world. At A in somewhere in the city, Alfred was sitting on his bed. Looking at the screen in front of him, he had at least realized that his skill was the ability to copy and make others kill as his own. Alfred kept on pondering because he knew that even though the basic were clear, he still did not know anything much about this skill. He was wishing to try all the nuances of the skills, but he was worried about the prying eyes looking at him. The next moment, his eyes darted to the picture that was on the wall. This was a bird's eye view of the map of the area that he was in right now. Looking at the map, his eyes got stuck to a certain mine in the area. He remembered that this mine was the area where he had gone to his mission last month. The place where he and his team had gone to save the miners from the kobolds. Alfred realized that this mine was the perfect opportunity because he can test his skills without holding back, and in the same time, he could also clear some of the monsters, thus 2 in 1. Alfred went out of his inn to find a carriage which could take him to the mine. In front of him, an open carriage was passing by. Alfred signaled his hand for the carriage to stop. He requested the carriage driver if he could drop him off at the mouth of the mine. But with a complicated expression, the driver refused the request because he said that he was still afraid of the monsters lurking nearby the mines. Alfred, seeing the fear of people about the mine, became sure that more monsters had spawned, in which meant that he is going to get even a better opportunity to test his skills. Making a compromise. Alfred asked the carriage driver to drop him off anywhere on the way rather than having to take him till the very end. He said he would walk the rest of the way. The carriage driver agreed, and he sat on its back headed towards the mine. By now, there were about 3/4 distance from the mine mouth. With extremely anxious and sweat falling down from face, the carriage driver called out to Alfred about something. He said that whatever Alfred was planning, it was not worth it, and he should just return to town and to not worry about the carriage fare. But Alfred, with a scoffing expression, said that there was nothing to worry about because it was going to be completely fine. But the carriage driver shouted out loudly that it was not going to be fine. He was just underestimating them. He told Alfred that in the past month, there was a really unfortunate accident in the mines from the monsters. In the mines, his best friend was killed, and he did not had in his heart to send a young boy like him into the death trap in front of him. Standing up and going near to the driver, he said that on that day the Court Mage Guild carried out a sweep operation to kill all the monsters. But unfortunately, by the time they had reached, one of the miners had already fallen prey, and he was one of the guild members that day. And now he has changed his profession from Court Mage Guild to a adventurer, because of which that mine held a lot of deep significance to him as well, because if there was danger lurking inside, it was more the reason he could not ignore it. After requesting a little bit, the carriage driver finally let Alfred go on his way. But before the driver went back, he told Alfred one last message, to be careful. Now the gate of the mine was completely dark and desolate, devoid of any light. Alfred burnt a torch in order to illuminate the road in front of him. Going a little bit in, he noticed something that was on the ground. It was a locket which held the picture of a little girl inside. Holding up his locket, he thought to himself that even though this incident happened as recently as just a month ago, but it still felt so distant, so far away. But just as he was holding the locket, the ground started to shake violently. This was an earthquake. Alfred started to panic because this meant that the ceiling was going to collapse onto him. He started to sprint towards the mouth of the mine. But unfortunately, it was too late because Alfred could not escape before the falling rocks cut his root off. Not giving up, Alfred started to charge his fist with the dragon knuckle spell, which he used to punch through the falling debris to make a doorway for him. But his fist could do nothing against a thick wall of stone and rocks. With the magic power he had, Alfred estimated that he could use the dragon knuckle only for 5 or 6 times. But this was nowhere going to be enough to help him escape. The air of the mine shaft was really thin. That's why he could not wait for his magic power to recover. For now, he was fortunate enough to crush by rocks, but he could not stay there for long. But then Alfred remembered that he had the skill of Ctrl key at his disposal, so he called it out. A system screen appeared in front of him. The notification said that the skill holder's request to load was confirmed. Full activation was initiated. And now there were some new commands available to him, like Ctrl F. The system told that Ctrl F could be used to search through library of all knowledge for information. Alfred could not understand what the system meant by the library of all information. The system continued to explain that if any kind of problem or accident occurred, the user could search for any solution to any problem. Realizing that this was the perfect thing that he could need now, he shouted out the command Ctrl F to search a way for him out of here. The system began to search for all the possible solutions. But it spit out that it was impossible to escape the cave. But rather than leaving Alfred completely in the dark, it gave out a suggestion instead. The system suggested that Alfred could dig and escape through the rocks by using the skill excavation, which can be possessed by some monsters in the mine. Knowing his path forward, he turned to explore the dungeon mine inside. And so he began his journey to the inside parts of the mine. But while walking, he read another thing that was written on the system. There were some random characters that was written in a dialogue box. Unable to read it, and unable to understand what it meant. He thought what may happen if he touched that button. The system gave out a buzzer saying that his proficiency was still insufficient. The button will be unlocked when his proficiency reached the threshold point. He could not understand what proficiency meant, but from the meaning of the word itself, he thought that it might mean that his skill will increase in power the more he uses it. While he was reading his system window, an unpleasant, horrid scream came through the caves inside. The creatures which gave out this horrid screams were monsters known as dark bats. Alfred realized that these bats were not that high of a priority because, of course, none of them would have the excavation skills. But among one of the bats, one opened its wide mouth to bite off Alfred. But Alfred, using his fast reaction speed, did a cartwheel to dodge the bite. He was completely surprised at how much these critters were able to replicate within just 1 month. Around this time, one of the bat had reached near Alfred's back. Using all of his force, the dark bat bit straight into Alfred's shoulder. Grabbing the bat from its head, Alfred ripped it out from his shoulder. Alfred further explained that dark bats are vicious monsters which use the skill blood suction to drain blood from human and livestock, causing death by exhaustion. He realized that if he used his magical skills to kill this many bats, then he will instantly run out of power. Knowing that, he pulled out his sword instead. Using his swordsmanship skill, he instantly sliced through all of the dark bats as butter. But the influx of new bats did not stop in any way, and they just kept on coming. Some of them attacked Alfred from his back, while some from his side. But using his skills, Alfred sliced through all of them. Taking a breather, he started to re-strategize because he knew that if he kept on like this, then he will be overwhelmed very soon. After a bit of thinking, he came back to his decision of using rapid action magic, even if it meant that he will be running out of magic power pretty soon. Alfred started to chant his fireball spell, but stopped midway to see something that was on his screen. His other command, Ctrl A, that was still unused. Betting his life on that skill, hoping that it will help him. He activated it. All of the dark bats present in the cave got tagged with the yellow arrow above their head. Not knowing what it was, the dark bats kept on continuing their assault. This new wave of assault was so severe that Fred could not even press the control button. But instead, he sliced through one of the monsters. But as a chain reaction, all of the monsters that got tagged inside the cave started to get sliced through the middle, one by one. Alfred could not believe his eyes on what the hell just happened now. Catching his breath, Alfred realized that this new spell caused damage to all kinds of marked animals, which meant that with just one spell, he was able to wipe out every single one of them. Knowing the advantage he had, Alfred once again used the Ctrl A. Once again, all of the bats present in the cave got tagged at once, and Alfred started to chant his fireball spell. After his fireball spell was ready, Alfred attacked it towards one of the bats. It instantly got multiplied and every single marked bats in the cave got killed. After killing all of the dark bats in the entrance of the cave, Alfred marched forward. Going a little bit inside, he was able to find 3 kobold monsters waiting for him. Alfred was disappointed because none of these monsters had the skill of excavation with them, but did not matter because he was ready to take any skills that he had his hands on. Alfred used the system keyboard to use the command Ctrl A to select all of the monsters all at once. Taking his sword, he began his assault on them. Using his swordsmanship skill, Alfred sliced through one of the monsters with ease. But Alfred's control skill caused the rest of the monsters to suffer the same fate as well. Thus, in just one strike, Alfred killed 3 monsters at once. Thinking back to just a few moments ago when he was observing one of the dark bats which he had just killed, he found out that the damage per hit had significantly decreased, which means that his attack was just not multiplied. It was divided among the number of characters that were selected. Alfred realized that he had to be absolutely cautious of when to use it, because if he used it carelessly, he will just agitate more enemies. Looking at a chopped-off monster hand on the ground, Alfred said that he did not feel comfortable looking at it. Alfred in general did not like killing monsters which gave a resemblance like humans. A while later, he activated one of the skills called night vision that he took from one of the monsters. Every single thing started to look really clear in front of him. The floor, the ceilings, the mana stones on the side. While walking towards the inside, Alfred told to himself that this might be one of the more useful kobold skills. He kept on walking for a long while, but in the roadway he was not able to encounter any new monsters. But after walking for a little while, he saw something really surprising. The cave in front of him was filled to the brim with large, powerful mana stones. Alfred estimated that if he took all of this back, he would have enough money to buy a castle for himself. He started to look around to find if there was any way to take all of these stones out. But then his eyes caught onto something that was on the far end of the room. It was a large, ominous, magical circle that was struck on the wall, which was set in place by multiple daggers on its edges. It was then explained that these magical circles are called demon seals. They are like doors for demons. Monster can come through them, which is why Monster kept on reappearing even after just a month of the sweep. Using its swordsman skill, Alfred sliced right through the middle of it, breaking the seal. The seal was completely broken, and what was left was the 5 daggers that held the seal in place. But doing this caused an enormous earthquake which shaked the entire cave. But Alfred realized that the shaking pattern was weird and it was not earthquake, but rather something was digging through the walls. An enormous worm started to dig out through the walls, moving in between them. This worm had a big circular jaw with a red eye in the middle and screamed at Alfred. This is a rock-clad earthworm. Targeting Alfred, it started to ready its attack. The worm then dived right at Alfred, but he was barely able to dodge using his swordsman's skill. Pulling out his sword, Alfred took a big slice at the worm, but he could not even touch the super hard carapace of the rockworm. Just by the intensity of the rebound, Alfred was thrown back few meters. Catching this breath, Alfred started to re-strategize on how to defeat this worm. He decided to go slow and silent. That's why he used one of the stealth he copied from one of the kobold monsters, stealth. Stealth helped Alfred to blend into the darkness and completely hide his presence, due to which the rockworm was unable to find where he was. For now, he was safe due to his stealth skill, but he needed to plan on what to do with this worm, as he could not just continue going on like this. First, he thought of using his magic to break the body, but he thought that it would be useless when he was not even able to break a wall in the first place. After thinking a while, he thought of investigating his opponent's skills by opening up the system window. There it was, the skill excavation which Alfred was desperately searching for. Using his Ctrl-C and Ctrl-V skill, he was able to copy off the excavation skill from the monster to onto him. Now the copy was complete and he was fully ready. Using his new excavation skill, he ran head first onto the worm to attack it. First to reach to its height, Alfred used the jump skill, and then used the excavation skill which turned his hands into big gauntlet like Digger. He threw this gauntlet onto the worm for an attack. Digging onto the skin, Alfred dragged his hand through the entire body of the worm. A wave of happiness flashed through Alfred's face when he realized that it was really effective. But in retaliation, the worm turned his head towards Alfred, opening its wide mouth to attack him. But Alfred was able to use his excavator hands to stop the entire force of the worm. Stopping the force, he started to dig inside of the body of the worm. Alfred kept on digging and digging until he came out of the side of the rockworm by digging its side. The rockworm started to scream in agony. But after screaming for a little while, it lost all of its energy and started to fall down. Alfred took a lot of breath to calm himself down and was happy that he was able to defeat the monster. Looking at his arm, he realized that the excavation skill is not just for digging rocks and walls, but it could also be used as a weapon. An idea came inside his head. What if he used his hand to mine out the mana crystals? So that's what he did. He mined out all the possible mana crystals that he could carry. He was surprised at himself at how much of a big haul he was able to dig up. He also looked at his clothes and realized that he was wearing the same clothes as the Mage Guild. He told to himself that once he reaches to the surface, he is going to buy himself a new set of outfit. Just as he said that, a big piece of rock fell down from the ceiling onto the battlefield. Alfred speculated that maybe this was because of their current battlefield, that the cave structure was getting more unstable. Using his excavation arms, he was able to dig through the rocks that cut off his exit route. He said to himself that even though he was just in to test his skills, but it turned out to be quite an adventure. Just then the carriage rider also came to the mouth of the mine. He was surprised upon seeing that Alfred was completely fine. Noticing the driver, Alfred asked him that why was he here. The cart driver said that he could not leave because he was worried about Alfred. After all, he could not have left a child to go alone and then return by himself. Giving out a chuckle, Alfred told the driver to not treat him like a child. After all, he was already an adult. A moment later, the driver noticed the silver necklace that Alfred was wearing. Instantly got shocked and recognized what that necklace was. Putting out the necklace, holding it in his arms, Alfred said that he found it in the mines. He felt bad to leave it inside there, so he brought it out with him. With a flashback, we are reminded that this necklace belonged to the person who was killed in the mine. Seeing a piece of his friend in front of him, the driver started to get emotional. Unable to stand straight holding Alfred's hand, the driver fell down to his knees. But tears in his eyes, the driver started to cry, thanking Alfred, thanking him for bringing out the necklace. Alfred saw just how important of a piece this was to the driver, and could not say anything and just looked silently. Showing one more act of kindness, he gave all of his mana crystals to the driver. The driver could not understand that why he was being shown so much amount of kindness. Showing his bag, Alfred said that this much amount of crystals was more than enough for him, and the rest were just like extras. Originally, it belonged to the miners anyway. So Alfred asked him to use this to fund the reconstruction of the mine. He further reassured that it was going to be completely fine because he removed the root source of the monsters. So it was okay to feel at ease and work again. With tears in his eyes, the driver said that if his friend would be here, he would be surely happy as well. Alfred was happy that he was able to do some act of kindness to a person. Looking at the sky, he commented how it has gotten way too late, and that he should get back. Looking at the cart driver, Alfred asked him that whether he is willing to provide him a lift back to his inn. He started to joke around that he won't give any money because the driver said that the fare was free. The driver was surprised at how nonchalant and kind Alfred was. He could not help but started to chuckle as well. And thus, both of them started on their return journey back to their inn. The new scene starts with Alfred putting on his new gloves, a new big cape. And then he turns around to see himself in the mirror to see how the new outfit looks. Contrary to the saleswoman who was having the time of her life, Alfred was second-guessing his buying choices, thinking that these clothes look a little bit too flashy. The saleswoman shouted at her, saying that to not second-guess anything, these clothes looked perfect on him. Hearing such a genuine and forward compliment, Alfred started to blush a little bit. Heeding the saleswoman's advice, Alfred took all of the outfits that she recommended. But after coming to his senses, he started to regret thinking that whether he got carried away by the lady and bought too much. Walking back to his inn, Alfred started to reassess everything that happened in the mines. Because of the monsters, he had gained 4 new skills, but he could not check the details in the middle of the battle, and he wanted to do them slowly and calmly. But the problem was, if he used those skills inside his room, the only thing that awaited was destruction. Hearing the commotion, the innkeeper came to Alfred's room to see what was the noise. Seeing Alfred's excavation hands, the innkeeper got absolutely petrified. He started to worry that at this rate he might get thrown out of the inn. Thus, he was completely deep in thought, thinking that where can he find a place away from prying eyes, and where safety can be ensured. Just as he was walking, he heard some kids stuck in some kind of a predicament. Among them, one of the kids was saying that they did not have enough money to buy one of the flowers. So the other one suggested to buy a cheaper one, but they kept on insisting to buy the costlier white flower. Alfred thought that maybe he could help them somehow. Just as he was stuck in a decision if he should or should not help them, he saw his mirage of his previous self running without any kind of hesitation. His previous self, without thinking even for a second, offered to buy the flower for them. But the only thing he received was his father's judgmental eyes for trying to talk with commoner kids, and he had no choice but to walk away without being able to help. Alfred realized that he did not need to be bounded to his past self anymore, and thus he resolved himself to go and help the kids. He approached the fighting kids who were still stuck among the white costly flower and the cheap flower, offering them some help. He asked the kids if they would like him to buy those flowers for them, and he did. The three kids kept on repeatedly saying thank you to the older brother, that who had just helped them now. The little girl among the group wondered if this white flower would help their mother to be a little bit more happy. Seeing their direction of walking, he understood that those kids came from Seiku Church. It was then explained that it was one of the largest religions in the world, which boosted the most number of followers on the continent. The Seiku Church. Those kids seemed to be orphans living in an orphanage which was run by the same church. Alfred got reminded that there might be an empty abandoned church in the outskirts of the town which is not being used, and that place would be big and spacious enough and far from prying guys. It seemed like a good place to safely train his skills without hurting anyone. Once the night fell, Alfred went to the abandoned church and he kept on looking at his stash to see what he had brought with him. His stash still had some magic stones remaining in them. These were the magical stones that were left remaining after Alfred had sold the rest for money. In total, they were about 70-80 magical power. But it did not matter much to Alfred because it was already more than enough to fully restore his depleted magic power a few times. And using these, he can thoroughly examine his skills. So he started by activating his control key, the system dialog box. At the side of the dialog box, he saw a number that represented his magic capacity. He got reminded how when he targeted an enemy in the window, he could see their names and skills that they had. Alfred got smug because he knew that it was far better to have a numerical value representing your magic rather than to guess it by your intuition. So he went back to the system menu to see the number of skills he had saved up till now. He had saved a lot of skills like sword collision, night vision, hiding, high jump, excavator. He also realized something super important, that the skills did not go away after 24 hours because he still had the swordsman's ship skill along with excavator, which he just got a day ago. This let him get to the conclusion that these skills are not temporary, but they are permanent. Once he gets one, he will be able to use it forever. Alfred was just in awe at how a guy who did not have any skill and was shamed for it had 5 at his disposal. Alfred kept on whistling in happiness. But just as he was about to practice his skills, someone at the door asked who was in there. Thinking that it might be an enemy, Alfred instantly turned around to see who it was. He saw that it was a blonde-haired girl who had rich-looking clothes like a noble. She had really beautiful turquoise eyes and was surprised upon looking at Alfred, whereas he held his sword ready to counter any attack that came his way. He told himself to not let this guard around even a little girl, because there was a lot of instances of using women and children to lower defenses and attack from behind. It was a common trap used by thieves. The girl had a pendant of cross of the Church of Seiku. It was hanging from her chest.